mainstream media and on social media, giving us an indication that the National Democratic Congress, as a political party, has reaching to the Speaker of Parliament to make some changes in your leadership in terms of Parliament. What is the true story from the perspective of the leadership of the NDC?
Thank you very much. It is true. We've issued a letter from headquarters signed by the General Secretary, the new General Secretary, Honorable Fifi Fiavi Kote, communicating formally to Mr. Speaker changes that we have made in our front line in Parliament. That is indeed true. And the new changes will bring on board Dr. Ato Forson as the new minority leader, Honorable Ama Kufibwa as the new deputy minority leader, and Honorable Governance Kwame Agboja as the new chief whip. And then we maintain Honorable Doyo Ganza and Honorable Ahmed Ibrahim. So this make up the new list of leadership in Parliament.
There's the obvious question as to why the NDC is taking the decision now.
Well, there are two questions. Why we are taking the decision and why now? And I guess the answer is the same. We started reorganization of our structures to be able to position ourselves to fight election 2024. We started that more than a year ago. We started at the branch level. We've since done elections in about 40,000 branches. And then from there, we proceeded to constituency level. We've done
I'm sure you know, having seen that footage, that we're gearing up for a discussion on the NDC's internal party politics as it's playing out in Parliament. Welcome back on the AM show. I am joined by Bernice Abubeidu Lancer.
Good morning to you.
Wagwan, ja.
Hey, I'm good. Good morning to you. A surprise. Did we see this coming? Did you see this coming?
There had been some snippets. It had been in the, on the grapevine, people had been speaking about it.
But this was quite a surprise. And we all know the reactions that have come in. But there's a lot more to look at and a lot more to digest. Is this really all about election 2024? Or there's something more to it?
Is there an undercurrent?
Exactly.
People have said, Haruna Iddrisu has been a bit outspoken when it comes to touting the former president. Some hinted that, it could have been, but it's really so far-fetched. Others have said that, listen, this could also be the former president. There has been some, it's just so unclear, but Esiedun Ketia put it aptly. He says, this is for the sake of the party. Dr. Ato Forson for economics, Bua on matters of energy and all of that, the other one for infrastructure. We are positioning ourselves for the crucial conversations that will come up ahead of election 2024.
Well, to help us digest the issues further, Professor Ransford Jampo, political scientist at the University of Ghana, joins us. And we would also be joined by Roxin Dafiamepo, who is an MP for South Dai, belonging to the NDC party. And we would also have Kofi Adams, MP for Buem, who also belongs to the party and a former executive. But let me start with you, Prof. I mean, does this also come as a surprise to you, or you are part of the privileged few who saw this coming?
How do you imagine that I'll be part of the privileged few, because I am not a member of the...
Maybe you have a crystal ball, and because you have your finger on the pulse of what is happening, maybe you heard something.
Well, because you're a political scientist as well, and these things, you know how information goes round. So,
well, I haven't been too happy with the performance of the leadership of the minority caucus, particularly in the area of day helping Parliament to perform, they helping this current Parliament to perform its role as a truly countervailing authority to the powers of the executive arm of government. You know, we all had a lot of hopes that given that Parliament is now of equal strength, they were going to assess themselves very well to ensure that the executive arm of government is held in check. What they did and did so well was how they, for the first time in the history of the Fourth Republic, managed to get a speaker who is not from the ruling party to be elected, and we applauded that. And going forward, we thought that we were going to sustain that kind of rule. But it appears that they have tended to give a certain higher expectation to the public of what they will be doing, and then when it mattered most, they disappointed. There are several examples. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. In, for instance, Kenoboriata on S, for instance, you remember, they were the ones who came to tell us that they are not going to support his election. And yet, when they had to vote, they voted for him. When they also went on the tangent on vote of
but to be fair, Professor Jampo, there have always been situations that have, called for some national outlook rather than a partisan outlook. When you call for the times when, in some way, they have supported the finance minister, it has been on the national, table, wouldn't you say?
No, please. I'm talking from what has happened, and we have empirical evidence. Were they not the ones who came to tell us that they were the man was not fit for purpose, and that they were going to vote against him? Didn't you hear? Were you not in Ghana? You had them out there, but then when they had to vote, they voted in a manner that was opposite to what they had told us. You know it. And when it came to vote of censure, they tabled it. But they could not oversee the logical conclusion of that motion. This and other allied issues that they gave us hope that they were going to hold the executive arm of government in check. You said it publicly, and yet when it mattered most, they voted in a manner that went contrary to the expectations that they had whipped up, in the minds and in the hearts of many Ghanaians. And so for me, I was looking up to a certain reshuffle that would bring about their true rule, or help them to extol their true rule as countervailing authority in the hands, countervailing authority of a hung parliament in our democratic discourse. So I was expecting a certain thing, but I was not expecting it to come in this particular form or around this particular time, even though I knew that there was going to be some changes.
Right, Prof. So talking about the form and manner in which this was done, the NDC MPs say they were not consulted. I mean, fair enough, these MPs represent constituents who voted for them. Admittedly, they did so on the ticket of a certain party. But the way this was done, doesn't it further entrench the idea that these MPs are there to serve their party's interest first before the constituents who gave them the nod?
I don't really understand your question. You want to...
I'm saying that you spoke about the form in which this was done. So their neck met, they made a decision, and they conveyed the message to Parliament.
Yes.
The MPs say they were not consulted. They were not aware of this new arrangement or decision, or they were not involved in the decision making. And I'm asking that this manner in which the party took its decision, doesn't it entrench that idea that the MPs are there to serve the party first instead of the constituents who voted for them?
Well,
so the party has a certain level of power over them, a certain level of power.
Yes, I to an extent agree with you, but you know my position. My position has always been that the MPs are always there to serve constituents. But first of all, we should find out how has this been done over the years. in determining who must lead the minority caucus or majority caucus, and so for this in this particular instance, in determining who must lead the minority caucus, how has it been done over the years? I think they have done what has happened has not departed from previous times or previous modes of selecting who must lead the minority caucus. It's not departed from that. And so I don't see the serious bula balu about it, except to say that we can always work to perfect systems. And so if people are calling for perfection and deepening of consultation, that's a conversation we can all have. But what I want to say is that over the years, they have not departed from the way and manner they select their caucus of their leaders. They haven't departed from that. So there are always levels of consultation. They consult the flag bearer of, I'm told President Mahama was consulted. I'm told the chairman of Council of State was consulted. Top brass and various serious constituencies within the party got consulted. But it appears, from the comments and from my own investigations, it appears that the members of parliament themselves, members of the minority caucus themselves, were not consulted. And
Prof, a quick interjection. You say they were not consulted. When we spoke to Asiedu Nketia yesterday, my colleague Blessed Suga, he actually said that they were, just not all of them. Now you're talking about 136 members of parliament. They are on recess. And he says some of them were consulted. In fact, he makes the point that letters were written to the leaders who were going to be replaced, a.k.a. Haruna Iddrisu, Muntaka Mubarak, among others.
There's a difference between writing letters to inform people and then actually going to them one-on-one, particularly those who are going to be affected, actually going to them to consult or to discuss the idea or proposal with them. What my investigation shows is that many of them, in fact, all of them that I've spoken to, I've not spoken to all of them, but the number of members of parliament that I've spoken to said that, they only had it, but there was nothing like a serious consultation, on this particular matter. And I'm saying that this particular mode of selecting who must lead the party in parliament has not departed from what used to happen, what used to exist in previous times. But we can work as a political scientist. If you ask me, I'll tell you that we should not interpret the party's own constitution and rules in a manner that will make the minority caucus some group of zombies who would be sitting down there, and then tomorrow they will be told that this is your leader or these are your leaders, and then they must peacefully follow. If you do that, you will strain relations, and people who have been affected will always work to undermine the leadership of the new people who may have been selected. And so my position is that, one, they have not done anything that departs from the previous mode of selecting who must lead the minority caucus in parliament. They haven't done that. But I would have wished that, given the fact that we are in the middle of the term of this particular parliament, it would have been better if they had sat all of the minority caucus down, and in particular those who are to be reshuffled. It would have been better if they had sat down to consult extensively and to engage them extensively, rather than taking the decision and having some elders of the party inform them. Because whether you like it or not, these people, Iddrisu, Haruna, Muntaka Mubarak, they also have following. I will tell you that I don't think they would have about 80% or 90% of the minority caucus, following them. And if they are not happy, it means the minority caucus, they also will be happy. And
the point must also be made. In fact, I've heard members of the minority, Muntaka Mubarak, among others, who have spoken to the matter, say that they have nothing against Dr. Ato Forson, he can easily step into that position, but they just feel that certain processes must be followed. So in terms of followership, it's not to say that the others who have been put forward don't have followers as well. They do.
No, the point is that, you see, if people are peeved and people are bitter and they want to be politically matured, they would make some of these comments publicly. But monitor the kinds of social media comments that these people who have been affected have put out there. It will tell you that sometimes what is said for the cameras are not what are actually practiced. And so I know they have healthy relations. I mean, they are outgone minority leader and KCL.
Right.
I mean, you cannot say that the relationship between them is frosty. But the point is that if you don't keep in consultations in a manner that brings all on board, then you see the members of the minority caucus, they are not stupid. They are not zombies. They cannot just be there and then tomorrow they are told that these are your leaders, and then quickly everybody is following them. Then the next day they are told these are your leaders. So an outside party comes to select leaders for them, and then they are following. If you come to
you say an outside, this is the party.
Yeah, this is the party, but the party is operating outside of parliament. Okay, those who selected these leaders, are not on the floor of parliament. Let me give you an example. As an academic, when my vice chancellor wants to select who heads the department, it's the vice chancellor who has the right to appoint the head of department. But to ensure that everybody is carried on board, what the vice chancellor will do will be to defer to the consultations and the views of members of faculty within that department. So if the faculty will say, well, we think that this man can lead us, and even if the vice chancellor wants to appoint a different person, he would engage the faculty to ensure that whoever is appointed is not sabotaged. But if you don't do that, and then you say, because I am here, I've just given you this, well, you may have done it, but you will see that because others may be bitter and others may not be happy, they will work to undermine. We know the kinds of work that people like Muntaka Mohammed did in bringing about the current Speaker of Parliament. Bringing about the current Speaker of Parliament. We know. And so if he's big and he decides to say that, well, okay, we would adopt a wait and see approach, then it may not be good for the fortunes of the party. This is not to say that KCL cannot do the work. I buy so much into the argument that the battle for the political soul of Ghana in the lead up to the 2024 elections will be fought on the soils of the economy. And so you need somebody who is articulate and who has a firm grasp over the economy to be able to lead and to represent the party's position on the economy and to let the development partners and the international community understand what the party stands for, as far as issues of the economy is concerned. And so I have every confidence in Ato Forson. He can do it and do it just as it is.
Quick one, very quick one. Couldn't he have done that from the backbench? Couldn't he have done that from, because already that is what happens. The majority leader, yes, espouses a certain leadership role, but in the end, when it comes to matters of the economy, whom do you often see talking about it?
Well,
it's Dr. Ato Forson.
Yeah, the point is that if you're a leader, your leverage and your influence is different from if you are not a leader. And so if that is what the party wants, they want somebody who will be out there speaking their position on the economy, giving the likely dominant factor in the lead up to the 2024 election. They said it should be Ato Forson. I think we must respect that. But my concern is that going forward, if you read their own party's constitution, they tell you that the party outside parliament or the party leadership would do this selection in consultation with the minority caucus.
Right,
Prof. Constitution says. So consultation is not about just informing. It's about sitting down with people and discussing some of these things with them. They may even hold contrary views to what you want to do. The fact that you are consulted does not mean your views must always be swallowed hook, line, and sinker. But that ethic and respect of saying that, well, we consulted you must always be there, so that when you select the leaders, the leader selected will not be seen as an imposition, and people would be willing to work with that leader rather than working to sabotage that leader to be able to prove a certain point.
Prof, just a second. Let me just say that we've also been joined by Roxanne Nelson Dafiameko, Member of Parliament, South Dai. A very good morning to you, Roxanne.
Yeah, good morning to you. Good morning to your listeners. Are we on TV or radio?
We're on TV. Just hold for me, Roxanne.
Okay.
I'll come to you. So I know you will follow with salutations and the rest, but just hold for me as we wrap with Prof. So, Prof, just very quickly address this for me. Before I get to the questions, though, I want you to look at the profile of Ato Forson. We all know he's the Member of Parliament for Ejumako Enyane Siem. His highest qualification is a philosopher's degree attained in 2020. He is a finance expert, certificates in taxation, economics, as well as accounting, former Deputy Minister of Finance 2013 to 2017, current ranking member of the Finance Committee of Parliament, and he obtained his Master of Science in Taxation from the University of Oxford and his PhD from the KNUST. So, very quickly on this, if you can do it in a minute, I'd be very grateful. Did the powers that be in the NDC in any way? I've heard from Dr. Kwame Asa-Asante, and he says, apart from procedural reasons, he feels it was apt. So did they err in any way? Two, are there more pros compared to cons in what has been done, or more cons compared to the pros? And finally, does Ato, looking at the profile I just read, does Ato Forson fit the bill as minority leader? Very quickly, as quickly as you can, Prof.
There was a need for a certain reshuffle of the minority leadership. And quickly, I'll tell you that Ato Forson actually fits the bill. And I agree with Kwame Asa-Asante. The only snag is that they would have given consultation to include the minority caucus, and in particular, those who have been affected by the reshuffle. Apart from that, Ato Forson is an excellent replacement of Iddrisu Haruna, particularly considering the fact that, as I indicated earlier, on the battle for the political soul of Ghana in the lead-up to 2024 elections will be fought on the grounds of the economy.
And so there are more pros in this situation than cons.
He actually fits the position that has been now entrusted to his care, except that consultations would have been deepened.
Professor Jampo, we're grateful that you joined us for this conversation. Professor Jampo is a political scientist at the University of Ghana. Bernice, we also have Member of Parliament for South Dai joining the conversation.
Yes, and good morning to you once again, Mr. Dafiameko. It's the morning after the news. Are you one of those who are still shocked about this, or you finally managed to process all that's happened?
Finally managed to process. I've been in touch with my leader, that's the Honorable Haruna Iddrisu. He is urging calm on all the members of the 137 caucus in Parliament. There's one thing I learned from him within the past 7 years, serving under him. He will tell you that in all situations, you must stand by the party's decision and defend it, whether good or bad. And so it's a philosophy that he imbibed in all of us, those of us who served under him in the 7th Parliament and served under him in the 8th Parliament until about midday yesterday. What is critical is that nobody doubts the competencies of the 3 new faces at the front bench. Indeed, the majority in effective change after the 2020 general election, they maintained their arrowhead, which was the Honorable Chairman Sabunsu, and changed the Deputy Majority Leader, changed the Majority Whip, changed the first Deputy Majority Whip and the second Deputy Majority Whip. And so they introduced 4 new faces in addition to the arrowhead. I have no problem in respect of the changes that have been effected. My only difficulty is the fact that our arrowhead has also been affected. I was hoping that if there will be any change within our front, at least our arrowhead would have been spared, because he delivered such a sterling leadership within the past 7 years as an opposition leader in parliament. He's debated 7 budgets of this government. And in all the 7 budgets that the government has submitted so far to this country, he was able to speak to the economic issues and punch holes with the support of the new leader who, until yesterday, was the ranking member on finance. So nobody doubts the competencies of the new minority leader. But we were hoping that the Honorable Haruna Iddrisu could have been maintained. That is my humble view. Hold on, for 2 reasons. One, for the sake that we could maintain cohesion, and because he is the arrowhead. And then 2, for the sake of religious balance. You see, we are a political party. For all that we do, you need some semblance of some religious balancing. As we speak, if we take our front bench, we don't have any Muslim. Doyo is a Christian. The Honorable Ahmed MP for Banda, that is the first deputy whip, is a Christian. The Honorable Kwame Abuja, my dear brother, is a Christian. The Honorable Ama Kofi is a Christian. Then the Honorable Ato Forson, Dr. Ato Forson, the new minority leader, is a Christian. That is what bothers me as a member of the minority caucus.
Roxanne, pardon my interjection here. I hear what you're saying, but how does religion come into this? How does it become? Because there have been points where we've had many Muslims on board. This is Benjamin, not Evans. This is Benjamin.
Ivan, you have asked me, how does religion come in here? That is why I said religious balance. It's important that as a political party, when we make such decisions, we avert our mind to religious sensibility. The NDC has such a huge following within the Muslim community. And I say these things as a submission of my humble opinion. I am not saying it to impugn the decision of Adabraka in this matter. Because Haruna has taught me and others that at all times, stand by the decision of the party and defend it. I am defending the decision of the party. I am only saying that I wish that he could have been maintained. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
On 2 grounds. On grounds that he delivered competency, and on grounds that coming from the religion, the Muslim religion, the Muslim group within Ghana, he could have been maintained. I don't see that semblance. That's all the point I'm making. And let nobody read me wrongly. Because for all intents and purposes, religion is very key. When as a political party we are taking strategic decisions, religion factors in keenly.
Right. Mr. Dafiamepo, you say that you were expecting that if there was any change going to be made, Mr. Iddrisu would have been maintained. Is that to suggest that you had a hint, you knew about this before the communication came in yesterday?
Of course, if you are abreast with current affairs, I returned from my constituency on the 15th of January after visiting my communities and my party executives to the news that there was some idea of some leadership shake-up within Parliament. And the names that were mooted in that news is what has been authenticated yesterday. So I thought that...
from the point of party communication to you as an MP. That's what I mean. Was it communicated to you? Did you know officially?
I will tell you that even the previous ones, I was only called into a meeting and informed that the party has agreed on the Honorable Haruna Iddrisu and 4 others as our leaders, and we were to accept it and defend it and expect that they will lead us, and they did. They did an excellent job. So I won't fault the procedure keenly because the Constitution is very clear as to who appoints our leadership in Parliament. I am only saying that in doing so, we could have considered the religious factor perspective.
So some of your colleagues are not too happy in the way this was done. They say they were not consulted. Do you think that the manner in which this has been done will make it more difficult for Ato Forson to do his work? And as it looks like now, the party the members of Parliament on your side appear to be quite divided on the matter.
To the extent that the person that we are angry that he's been removed, that is the Honorable Haruna Iddrisu, he himself is urging camp. To the extent that he says that at all times, let's stand by the party's decision and defend it. If he is urging his lieutenants and backbenchers camp so that we can support the new leadership, we can only listen to him and support the new leadership so we can deliver. I want to believe that he will be given some poignant role within the caucus to play going forward.
Are you able, sorry Benjamin, but you say you spoke to him. Are you able to tell us if he was called into a meeting, if he was properly informed before this letter reached the table of the Speaker?
I cannot confirm or deny that, but I know that being the leader of the caucus, he had a hint. They discussed the matter at the highest level. But to the extent that the factors that led to the actual removal, whether he's in agreement with the issues or not, I cannot speak to that. But he knew that this decision was being taken, and there was efforts to let those who are taking the decision to take a real look at the arrangement that they were seeking to introduce.
Very quickly, to wrap with you and move on to Kofi Adams, who has also joined the conversation. Mr. Adams, a very good morning to you. Hello, Mr. Adams. All right. Just to wrap with you, Roxanne Nelson Dafiamekpo, you mentioned that the former minority leader, Haruna Iddrisu, could play some other crucial role. What other role could he likely play? And do you agree, when you look at Ato Forson, when you look at Honorable Bua, among others who have been brought in to shore up the party's parliamentary positions on the economy, energy and industry, are they apt in that regard? So 2 quick questions and we can take it from there. Roxanne.
Yes, I see that there's no lawyer in the front room. There's no lawyer as well in the front room. A lawyer is completely missing. And he being a lawyer under whom I have trained in terms of parliamentary democracy and parliamentary jurisprudence, I think that he will be given some role in terms of leading the lawyers in Parliament and dealing with some of the legal issues that may, or constitutional issues that may come up. He naturally is going to fall into the category of lawyer Cletus Abuka, also a former leader of the caucus. I think we can team up well and work well to deliver victory 2024-2025.
Roxanne, we're grateful that you took the time to join us this morning for this conversation. Thank you, sir. He is Member of Parliament for South Dai. We're also joined by Dr. Draman, who is with Dr. Rashid Draman, who is Executive Director, Africa Center for Parliamentary Affairs. Thank you, sir, for joining the conversation.
Good morning.
What are the optics for you? What are your takeaways right from when you heard this? Did you hear the storm brewing? And now that it has come to play before all of us, what are your quick takeaways from what happened?
I didn't see this coming. So when I heard the news, I think it was actually one of your colleagues from Joy that called me and said there's breaking news and they would like to have a conversation. My immediate, reaction was I began asking myself the question. Did the party consult the caucus? Is there something wrong about the leadership of these people who have been totally removed? So that was my first question. And the second takeaway for me was I was really surprised at the complete sweep of the front bench. I have seen over the years, following this parliament for more than 20 years, I've seen changes happen in the leadership of the various caucuses. But in most instances, one or two people will be moved here and there. But I've never seen a complete shake-up like this one, particularly midstream. And I think that is what is important here, midstream. We are getting ready for election 2024, and NDC is projecting itself as a government in waiting, an alternative government that Ghanaians should trust and give power to. So for me, everything that is done at the party level and so on, we have to be given indications that these are transparent, these are participatory, and so on and so forth. So that at least at the end of the day, if you have a leadership that is given to a people, the people who are supposed to be led will willingly allow themselves to be led. I hear the honorable member talk about the fact that in the past, they've just been called into a meeting and informed that this is your new leadership, and then work with them and make sure that you defend the party position and so on. The question I would have loved you to ask him was, in this case, was that done? Were they all called together to be informed, particularly because of the character of this current parliament? When no party can afford to lose even one single vote.
Yeah, Dr. Draman, we know that many of them have expressed shock at the time the news broke. Our parliamentary correspondent was with some NDC MPs who said they were not aware of what happened. We've heard from Murtala Mohammed, who actually says the timing of this is totally wrong. And so we know for a fact that not all of them were consulted. And that's why the question was to him specifically, if he knew if this was coming up.
Yes, indeed. I think that, I guess at the end of the day, for me, I've said this over and over, when a party is a government in waiting, the yardstick for measuring that party is its performance in parliament. We Ghanaians don't care about what happens at party headquarters. Because we didn't elect those who sit at party headquarters. Their party elected them. But those who are sitting in the 275-member chamber are those that were elected by Ghanaians. And that is how we measure the performance of either a government in power or a government in waiting. So I think that if indeed there were no consultations, you want to make sure that now that the decision has been made, the fallout is managed to the extent that the NDC can project an image of party that can be trusted, that can be given power come 2024 if Ghanaians so wish.
You've been monitoring Parliament for a very long time. Is this the first time you've seen something of this sort?
Yes, in fact, as I have said, I've been monitoring this Parliament longer than most of the members who are sitting in that house. Since the second Parliament, I've had engagements with this Parliament, different programs, different projects. At a time when even people like the current Speaker and so on were in leadership, in minority, and so on. So I have seen changes happen every now and then. That's a constant. You will see maybe the leader moved or the deputy leader and so on. But I haven't seen a complete sweep like this. Maybe it has happened, but I can't remember because 20 years is quite a long time.
When you say complete sweep, though, is it a complete sweep? It's not all of them who've been moved.
Well, I mean, there are only 2 that have been left, isn't it?
So it doesn't make it a complete sweep.
Well, I mean, that's almost like a complete sweep, if you like, particularly the leader, the deputy leader, the whip. I mean, these are the 3 critical positions, that's why we say, for instance, whenever there's going to be change in an organization, you don't go and change the entire leadership of the organization. Then you are likely to have challenges with transition and so on and so forth. So, for instance, in my organization, if I'm going to move people, I will not go and move all the 3 top people at the same time. Then you are not careful, some memory will be lost.
Right.
If people are not happy, they might not cooperate with the new group that's coming and so on and so forth. And we are talking, Benjamin, we are talking about democracy here. I mean, even if these practices have been so in the past, I think our democracy is evolving. We are talking about participation. You know, today, Ghanaians are crying because people are saying the government is deciding, making decisions about our money without consulting us. You know, I mean, this is no different from what we are seeing play out within the NDC.
Are you suggesting that the NDC in adopting this position has been a bit autocratic or maybe full throttle autocratic? And I'd like to draw your attention to this fact. Roxanne Nelson Dafiamekpo, the member of parliament for South Dai, who is himself a minority MP, says he may have his issues, but he says this is actually nothing new. It's when Haruna was being brought in, this is how he was brought in. The party determines and says, these are our people, and maybe, yes, there may be some level of discussion on them, but this is how it's always been. Is the only novelty not the fact that it's happening midstream? What else is different?
Well, I mean, the other thing that is different, you know, Honorable Nelson Dafiamekpo said they were brought into a meeting and told that this is your leaders. I don't know whether you question him about that. And for me, even if this is how things have been done in the past, you know, it doesn't make it right, because we are saying that our parties must be democratic, isn't it? We are saying that, you know, processes within political parties must be such that when we have people coming from these parties into parliament, they would also be democratic, and they will practice the processes of consulting us and the processes of making sure that the views of the citizens are taken into account, even if not every view can be taken into account. So I think that that's the angle. And I'm not saying, I'm not raising the red flag about consultation. You spoke to Honorable Muntala. I mean, he's a member of the caucus. Yesterday, I was on one of your programs, and Evans mentioned that another member of the caucus, a senior member, Honorable Cletus Avoka, who in fact was a majority leader at one point for that party, also raised some concerns. So, I mean, if we are drawing from this, even if there was consultation, perhaps maybe not all of them were consulted.
Very selective.
So maybe my final bit to you before we proceed, I'd just like to find out, crucially, the chairman of the party, Esiedun Ketia, says opinions are like panties and everyone can have them. And he goes on to state why the party has come up with this major shakeup. Quoting him, he says, "We know, for instance, that going into election 2024, the economy is going to be the major battleground, and so many of the debates will focus on the economy. So you better put your best man in economics forward." That is what we have done. We also looked at energy. You know, the petroleum and electricity challenges. So we needed to settle on Kofi Amabua, our former minister, to be the deputy minority leader. Finally, he says, the other area is infrastructure. Kwame Agboja, being our man in infrastructure, should play a key role. That generally is what informed the changes. Do you agree with him?
Well, I mean, it's not a question of whether agreeing or disagreeing with him, but for me, I have questions about this. For instance, if you recall, every press conference that the NDC had on the economy, I thought that I've always seen Dr. Ato Forson given the platform, given all the visibility to play the role that he ought to play as a spokesperson on finance. So I don't know whether there was something that was lacking. And when it came to energy, the same thing. When it came to other issues, they have people who speak on interior and security matters and so on and so forth. I mean, the leader does not necessarily have to have, knowledge of economics. I mean, he just has to surround himself with spokespersons that can deal with the issue. So on that score, I honestly don't know where that justification is coming from. I mean, except maybe to say that if there were instances when these people were not given the platform to speak as the experts on those issues, then maybe the chairman has
Doug, quickly, so you say you don't see where that justification comes from. Doesn't mean what the chairman of the party has said does not really wash with you. It doesn't really make sense as from where you sit.
No, I mean, from where I sit, what I'm saying is that I think Honorable Ato Forson, the current leader, has always been the person who has spoken on finance. And he has always been given the platform, at least based on what we see on your screens. If it's something else, then maybe I don't know.
Yeah, well, and that's the indication a lot of people are getting. I'd ask you to hold on for me, Dr. Draman. We've been joined by Kofi Adams. He's an MP for Buem. He belongs to the NDC. At a point, he was an executive of the party. Good morning to you, and great to have you on the show. We'd just like you to help us understand how these things work. As a former executive of the party, did it ever happen that you had to deliberate on changing the leadership of Parliament midstream? And how did this news come to you?
Well, good morning and thank you for the opportunity. I believe I'm speaking to Benny.
Hello, Mr. Adams.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
Hello, yes.
I believe this is Benny.
Yes, this is Bernice.
Well, as a party, we have not had the opportunity of changing a minority leader before. We were in government from 1993 to January 2001. And when we went into opposition from January 2001, we had a minority leader who went through the 2 terms we were in opposition after January 2009, and that is current Speaker Baggett. And then became our majority leader for a short while until he was appointed a minister and we had a replacement. So, as a party, we have not had the experience of changing a minority leader. However, we have changed majority leaders before. And because these were majority leaders we were taking, what it means is that we were then in government. So it was possible to shift that leader to other areas. So it would not generate the kind of discussion this is generating. But the party has not done anything wrong. Indeed, the closest you will get to in terms of identifying leadership of Parliament in our provisions, either you pick the National Constitution, is silent. If you pick our standing orders, if you pick our standing orders and you go to the preliminary page, I think about standing order provision 7, that is what deals the interpretation, is what deals with what a majority and a minority leader is. And it's very clear that the person designated by the party or party before the act and or members of Parliament. So our own standing orders, which Parliament itself developed, interpret a majority leader or a minority leader as someone designated by the part or party. Because sometimes parties can go into an alliance before going into an election. So our understanding on it, that guides our way. Recognize that the designation of that position is by the party or party.
Interesting. So, how did you get to know about this latest change by your party? And were you as shocked as some of your colleagues were?
Well, like all other changes, you would expect the shock factor. If you will have to wait for a change to reach a point where everybody says it must be changed, then it means that you are having a problem. Leadership must not speak until everybody sees that change must happen before you change. Leadership must see the need for a change when many have not seen it, or other persons should inform them to make that change. That's what leadership is all about. If leadership will wait to effect change only when everybody has seen it, then you don't have leadership.
So I get that you don't have a problem. You don't have a problem with the timing, with the
an aspect of shock in decisions of leadership is allowed. I am not in a position to be consulted because I am not part of maybe parliamentary leadership or even party functional leadership or a key component. But I am however aware that that consultation went on.
Fair enough. Like you mentioned, the party's leadership has the right to change. Its leaders or leader in parliament at its own discretion. But we've heard from the chairman of your party, who's given some reasons. He says this is to help the party organize for election 2024 and goes to give further explanations. He talks about how the economy will be key ahead of the elections, and so they needed Dr. Ato Forson to be leader of the minority. But a lot have raised questions. Take, for example, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, who was very instrumental and has been credited a lot for the party's success in the 2016 elections, especially on his role in raising and dealing with the issues of the economy. Does it have to take Dr. Ato Forson to be minority leader for him to be effective, or even any of the other leaders who have been cited for different sectors like infrastructure and power? Do they need to be there as leaders to effectively support the party's bid to win the 2024 elections?
Well, like you said, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia did it. He did it as a running mate. So if we have opportunity of further supporting it to the minority leader, what is wrong with that? So the chairman of the party has given you some reasons. And I was not even expecting the leadership to be providing reasons out there for the changes that they did. I believe that telling the people that, look, we did the changes for tactical reasons is enough. Don't even provide the details. That's why I'm a bit also surprised and scared that colleagues and members will be introducing many other factors. I heard my colleague talk about religious balance. I don't think that is fair comments to be making at this moment. Look, it took leaders like late President Rawlings to introduce a lot of reforms, religious reforms that provided opportunity for the Islamic community in Ghana. He wasn't a Muslim. His running mate or vice president was not a Muslim. It took persons like late President Mills and Vice President Mahama and President Mahama and his team to introduce means of movement for pilgrims that made pilgrimage a bit more comfortable. They were not Muslims. So it should not take a Muslim sitting in the front line to make sure that issues of religious balance is prosecuted either in parliament or in society in general.
So you have a problem with the issue of religion, and he cited religious balance. Does that also mean you have a problem when your chairman says that they needed, one of the reasons that informed this reshuffle is that they need regional balance? Or
well, regional balance is not religious balance. Regional balance is actually stated in our constitution. our national constitution we all voted for is minded to talk about regional balance.
But what's the difference? What's the difference here? Mr. Adams.
When Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia introduced the issue of religious sin into our national body policy, that there will be swearing in by the Quran and the Bible, many of us thought that was wrong.
But I'm just wondering. I mean, because they appear to be similar principles. Because if you say that you want religious balance, and so you want a representation of the two major religions, is it not the same as saying we want regional balance? We want everybody to feel represented?
Regional balance is not the same as...
How are they not the same?
Because we do not have just one or two religions. We do not have just one or two religions.
Yeah, but for the leadership now, they don't have all the 16 regions represented there. So clearly,
when we say a regional balance, it doesn't mean every single 16 regions will have to have a space in there.
So you're saying the same thing. So when we say religious balance, it doesn't mean that all the religions in Ghana will need to have representation.
Well, religion is not the same as religion. That's all that I'm trying to tell you.
Are you saying
religion is not, the traditionalists will not tell their practices are not the same as Christian.
So point made.
Practices are not the same as Muslims. So in terms of regional balancing, you can have a fair representation zonally at certain. How are you going to say that a Christian will represent the interests of traditionalists? How are you going to say a Muslim will represent the interests of traditionalists and Christians? How are you going to say that?
But you just said that. You just cited examples where there were people who didn't belong to a certain religion but helped.
That is why I'm saying you don't have to introduce that at all.
Right, fair enough.
By extension, then, are you saying you agree with the party that the party on all levels, you have a former presidential candidate who has run time and again and is likely to run this time, of Northern extraction, head of your neck of Northern extraction, head or your leader in parliament of Northern extraction, do you feel then that it was apt, based on what you're saying, for this shake-up to happen, for that regional balance? Now we see the central region in there, the Volta region is still in there, the western region is in there. Is that shake-up, at least per that direction, is it apt?
That is why I said that what is available to party leaders is not available to us individual members of parliament, even when we put ourselves as a collective. Because the leadership deals with parliament, it deals with many other organs and structures. They look at the general strategy for the party. The strategy is towards the 2024. And so certain changes will be done. I believe, yes, consultation should be underlined, that persons must be consulted. The outgoing must be given the necessary respect and recognition. That must be registered very clearly. But then, when the leadership has taken the decision, ours is to have a way of working with it.
So just to follow up from there, a quick question on this shuffle. Your colleague MP Murtala Mohammed says the timing is wrong. There's an analyst in the Daily Dispatch newspaper this morning who says this could be some form of political suicide. You could be shooting yourselves in the foot. A deputy communications director of the MPP, Owusu Bempa, says, look, how can you even think of this? Let me quote him here. Can Ato Forson match up to Oseiche Mensah-Bonsu in terms of parliamentary debate and knowledge? Kofi Amabua defeating or debating Afenyo Markin, that is a political obituary. It is a political suicide for the NDC. What do you think?
You see, anyone who analyzes one-to-one is making a mistake. A team has been selected that is to lead a caucus together with the party to make sure that we prosecute an agenda that will lead to ultimate victory come 2024. Nothing more, nothing less. Anyone who decides to go and match Ato Forson against Chairman Sabu or Boa against my friend Afenyo Maki or Honorable Kwame Akpoja against my very good friend from Sawam at Nigeria will be making a big mistake. Ours is not a case of one-to-one match. Ours is a case of putting a team that that will help prosecute an agenda towards 2024. And I believe that leadership was formed strongly by that in making the decisions that they took. And we will complete this process when we finally elect flag bearer, elect parliamentary candidates, and follow that up with the appointment of other positions to fill the various party sectors that are available. That will surely be done. And I think that what the party needs now, what the rank and file should do, having given indication and talk about consultation, is to rally around the decision and let's carry on.
Mr. Adams, would ask you to hold on briefly as we wrap up with Dr. Rashid Rahman. Doc, so as Mr. Adams just said, in that statement released by the party, we are told that the new leadership will be charged to recommend consequential changes to the ranking membership to headquarters for the party's approval. So definitely there's going to be a ripple effect on different committees within Parliament. But for you, what should the party do going forward to ensure that what we are seeing play out in the media space with regards to disagreements, concerns being raised, do not deepen and affect the party in the long run?
Must do is to manage the fallout from this very, very carefully. I think, I'm hearing from the members, each of them trying to defend the decision of the party. Yes, if this is how things have been done in the past, I think for me, as a group that promotes participation and transparency and so on, I believe consultation is key. If they have to rally their forces, if they have to show an image of unity, if they have to show an image of government in waiting that we can trust and give power to. How they do it going forward, I think that's a task for the leadership of the party, because you want to make sure that you have people who lead, people who are willing to be led.
Right. We appreciate your time here this morning. Dr. Rashid Rahman is Executive Director, Africa Center for Parliamentary Affairs, and he's been sharing his thoughts with us. Back to you, Mr. Adams. So there are those who have suggested that there's more to this than meets the eye. There's more to this than the reasons the party leadership has given. Some have cited, for example, the leadership, there's a former leadership led by Haruna Iddrisu saying, oh, we're not going to approve the finance minister, and then there's reversal of that decision eventually. Is there more to this than meets the eye? Is it more about function? Is it more about the party's disappointment and how Haruna Iddrisu has led it?
What's the chief whip's job? Of course, if you understand the leader's position, you can understand that there's a need for a deputy. But the whip and the...
Hello? Hello, Mr. Adams? Have we lost Kofi Adams? It appears so. Well, while we try to rectify that line, it's interesting, but on the score of whether or not this is simply about election 2024 and regional organization of the party is an angle that has been explored, but we just wanted to take Kofi Adams' take on that.
Yeah.
There are those who have suggested that the party is disappointed in Haruna Iddrisu's leadership, and some have raised concerns. For example, Muntaka Mubarak was quite vocal about his views about Speaker.
There are times when the leadership of Haruna has been questioned, but there's no leader, whether majority or minority, who will not face that at some point in time. Muntaka himself has been contested, and there have been shakeups. By and large, you would see also from the support that he's getting, not just from the Northern Caucus of the minority in Parliament, but other angles, that he's also acquitted himself creditably. And all of our guests this morning have said that. So I guess we'll wait to see how this pans out moving forward for the party.
Right, I'm told we have Mr. Adams back on the line. Hello, Kofi Adams, if you can hear me.
Yes.
Great. Is this not more about Haruna Iddrisu's leadership style. We've had guests who earlier came on the show raising concerns about, especially, in Parliament, when he came out to say, look, we were not going to endorse the finance minister later. There's a reversal of that decision, and there appears to be similar examples. Muntaka Mubarak, for example, has been questioned for speaking up against Speaker Gbagbin, saying that he was running Parliament like a palace. And so there are those who think that, no, you're just giving us reasons, but there's more to this than meets the eye.
Not at all, Benny. The truth is that Honorable Haruna Iddrisu has given one of the best leadership to the caucus. Indeed, he has taken us through very trying and difficult times. And most of the decisions that the caucus have taken, at least for the period that have been there, have been through detailed consultation processes. Yes, some on-the-spot decisions, strategic decisions may be taken that will not allow for some deep consultation. That we admit. But he has offered the best of leadership in this very trying time. And the reason for the change is not because of non-performance or any thing that he's done completely wrong. But it is just part of the strategy, as I've said earlier, towards the 2024 elections.
We haven't
nothing more, nothing less. And the chairman of the party, the general secretary, have stated so clearly.
It will be great to hear from Haruna Iddrisu himself, because we're yet to hear from him. In fact, the day before...
It is also never to do with who supported who. Indeed, among the three introduced leaders are some who didn't support the candidature of either the chairman or even the general secretary that we have now. So it is clearly not about who supported who. It is clearly, let's take all those things out.
All right.
People in their fertile minds may want to introduce such things, but it is clearly never about that.
Would you say that Haruna Iddrisu has been treated fairly? You just mentioned he's done a lot of work. In the manner in which this was done and the way the communication came, would you say it's a fair treatment?
Well, considering the experience of the past, where we had a minority leader having a full 8 year to serve, that's 2 terms, some will say that maybe we could have allowed Honorable Haruna to complete this 8th parliament that he started with. But like I said, leadership is informed, decision is informed by strategy, not just necessarily feeling. A very good striker scoring coach can be substituted by a coach for a defender because you want to protect what you already have.
But that's not the case here, is it?
Maybe substituted for a striker because you are seeking more goals. The fact that you do substitution doesn't mean the person you are replacing is a very bad person. No.
It's interesting, these dynamics. When you look at the Chronicle newspaper today, there are some interesting comments there. They say, just on the back of what Bernice posed to you as a question, NDC use Haruna Muntaka and dump them. And then we have a reaction from Haruna, who has said he's always available to serve the party. Never let a wishbone grow where a backbone should be. I will forever serve my country. Never let a wishbone grow where a backbone should be. When you listen to the rhetoric of the former minority leader, what does it smack of?
No, but clearly what it means is that he understands as a minority leader, you serve on the wishes of the people, not a backbone. And so
I beg to interject. A wishbone is more, it's less functional compared to a backbone. And what I deduce from it is...
When you are given an opportunity to serve, don't make it as a permanent place.
I see. That's your reading of what he said.
He understands that leadership is transient. You will not be there forever. You will not. So don't make it like I have come and I'm going to be there all through. So he has his own look. Honorable Haruna is somebody who always gives it to the party. He may be unhappy, possibly about consultation, but he would always say, let the party prevail.
It's surprising, but particularly interesting. Those are the words of Arnaud Dompré, Majority Chief Whip in Parliament for the NPP, and that has been his reaction to it. We've heard from Alhassan Tampuli, former NPA boss, also a member of Parliament, encouraging the former minority leader and all of that. How do you think this will play out in real terms in Parliament? And again, I'll pose that question I posed to Roxanne, I believe. What now happens to Haruna Iddrisu? Let's forget about the others. What happens to Haruna Iddrisu? How is he going to be played by the minority as some sort of prominent figure in Parliament? What happens?
Well, thank you. One thing about Parliament is that I will not say that another prayer or Honorable Tampuli's position is because they are on the other side. When we are in Parliament, there's some level of solidarity. So I would say that there's some mischief in what they want to say. I see it as true solidarity to a comrade and then a colleague. But Honorable Haruna Iddrisu has taken this in good stride. What happens to him? We recognize him as a leader. Once a leader, always a leader. And that is why even today in Parliament, for many of us who did not have Honorable Christopher leaders as majority leader, we still call him leader. For many of us who were not in Parliament, when Honorable Rashid Telfo was our leader, we still call him leader. So the fact that you are not taking the front seat doesn't mean that you have lost that leader in you that we saw. So he's still our leader. But everybody first is a member of Parliament. But of course,
did you just say, you said something very interesting, Mr. Adams. Did you just say he is still our leader?
Yes, we see him as a leader. He's led us. He will continue. He has an enormous experience. That is why, for example, sometimes you hear Mr. Speaker say, I am taking only two views from either side. Then you will see someone like Honorable Christopher on his seat. And Mr. Speaker will say, no, I cannot let this experienced person on his seat just ask him to say that, so I'll take his view. So even Mr. Speaker, he failed to stand first. So tomorrow, even if Honorable Haruna Iddrisu will have to take a seat behind the front bench, when he's on his feet on a matter, the Speaker will recognize that. All other persons will recognize that. So it doesn't take what he has done over the years from 2017 till now. The fact that he's no more a leader, it doesn't take that away from him.
Right, and we've seen that with Cletus Avoka and others after leading.
Exactly.
They've gone to the backbenches, continuing to serve in Parliament. But let me find out. At the bottom of all of this, there has been some simmering conversation in terms of an anti-Mahama group and the former president flexing his muscles and how it has degenerated into this, and others say, no, it's the other way round. What exactly is the situation? Is this merely the party rejigging its machinery, or is there more to this than we're seeing?
So it's clearly the party enriching the machinery towards 2024 based on its understanding, at least at this moment. It has nothing to do with pro or anti-Mahama. And our leader has been one person who constantly has pronounced His Excellency John Dramani Mahama as our presumptive leader. In our recent National Congress, when he spoke, his position was very clear. In all our meetings, he has not missed words when it comes to his support for the candidate.
And that has been problematic, hasn't it?
Of course. So Honorable Haruna is never an anti-Mahama person. Unless somebody could prove me wrong on any other issue, then I don't see it that way. And this decision has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with the party's considered strategy towards strengthening an area that is perceived necessary as we march towards 2024 elections.
So listening to General Asiedun Ketia, of course, we call him General, but General Mosquito, he he says, in terms of why, what it tells you is that the only constant thing is change. Since the environment is changing, leadership must change along with the new environment. What does that mean in the context of the NDC in Parliament now? What further changes, I mean, if any, have been communicated to you? Apart from the party's leadership, we have the committee ranking members and all of that. And we know, for example, that PAC may also change. Kluchaveji, who is no longer at post. How is it going to work out?
PAC will not necessarily change.
Okay.
It is not a deputy minority leader that chairs public accounts.
I know that, but I'm just wondering what approach the party will use
there will be a number of changes at the committee level, by all means. The current minority leader was the ranking for finance. Automatically, he's not going to rank finance committee again. So surely, there will be some changes there. If you remain a member of the committee, he will not rank it. So changes will be happening there. The deputy minority leader was also ranking some committees. I am sure he may not continue to rank that committee. There are other committees that will necessarily change because there is indication in the letter that this new leadership will now sit to look at the recomposition of committee leadership and submit them to the party for consideration. So it means that the party itself recognizes that they have a limit that they can go. They determine the front leadership through consultation, and that front leadership will work to deal with the other leadership and submit them to party for them to agree and this final implementation. So we should expect some more changes in the leadership of not the front, because that has already happened.
Right.
But the committee.
So we should expect some more changes at the committee level on the back of these. My final bit to you, Mr. Adams, with this change, is the NDC in a better position or pole position to capture power in 2024?
Well, it's preparing us better for 2024. You see, when you cut a tree, that is providing some shade. In the short term, there may be more sun over the people. But the long run is that tree you have cut will sprout more and develop more branches and expand its coverage. So very soon, by the time we hit a decision time for people to decide about which party they prefer to lead this country from 2025, the decisions that have been made today would have reached fruition, and we will see the impact. But at least in this short term, you should expect the reactions that you are seeing. You should expect some people not to be happy. And this will include members of parliament, this will include supporters and followers and sympathizers of some who have been changed, and so on and so forth. All that will happen. But ultimately, it will be looking good for the party if we agree to work together as a team, and which is what I believe is going to happen.
Mr. Adams, we're grateful for your time. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. Kofi Adams is Member of Parliament for Buem. We're also joined initially by Professor Ransford Jampo. We started the conversation with him, political scientist at the University of Ghana, Dr. Rashid Rahman, Executive Director, Africa Center for Parliamentary Affairs, and Roxanne Nelson Dafiamekpo, Member of Parliament for South Dying.